Hi, I'm Mielle Marquis, and I'm excited to invite you to our third annual Women in the Law podcast today. My guest today is Gina Perini. I'm very excited to talk about leadership with her, and it's going to be a terrific interaction. I just can't wait. We are in our 13th year of Women in the Law. And our 13th conference is coming up on May 21st. I know, 13 is coming up on Friday, May 21st. And this will probably come out shortly after that. But we're producing it in honor of our 13th conference. And I wanted to give you a little bit of background about Gina. She is SOMOS's chair of the board and chair of the board of directors and the CEO. She joined SOMOS in 2012, initially as the chief administrative officer and general counsel, and later as acting president and CEO. She transformed SOMOS into the industry's leading provider of registry management and data solutions. In 2020, Gina was named a winner of the Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year Award for the New Jersey region, which is a big honor. And in 2014, she was honored as a pioneer, a role model, and a trailblazer by the Massachusetts Lawyers Weekly as a top women in the law. She has served as an advisory group member for Northeastern University's Women in the Law program for nearly 15 years. So I've had the pleasure of knowing Gina for all of that time. Prior to joining SOMOS, Gina was with GTC Law Group and Affiliates and Foley Hoag, where she advised businesses on global, corporate, and intellectual property law matters related to technology, telecommunications, the internet, new media, and advertising, which makes sense as to how you got into your current role. But I would just like to welcome you. Thank you for being with me today.
Thank you, Mielle. I always love a chance to talk with you.
Yeah, this will be fun. So I'm going to dive back a little bit and look in the past for just a minute, and wanted to see, did you hold any leadership roles in high school? Was there anything that you did in your early years that you think shaped kind of what you're doing now?
You know, high school, I can't think of one, but I definitely in college found that I bloomed in many ways.
And you went to Smith?
I went to William Smith, Hobart and William Smith.
Okay.
People get those confused.
Yeah.
But somewhat. And it's in upstate New York, small liberal arts college, was absolutely perfect for me to really spread my wings and learn. And I actually I think one of the biggest things is the professors there really encouraged leadership and critical thinking, individual thought. And so it was a perfect soup for me to take leadership roles. So I had many. I was an overachiever in the leadership category in college, I think. I was trying out a lot of different things.
Oh, fantastic. And you were studying women's studies as one of your majors?
Yes.
And do you think that shaped who you are a little bit?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think about that a lot. I have one of my sons is going to college, small liberal arts college. We've shaped him in a certain way, but talking a lot about critical thinking. And I talked a lot about how having an interdisciplinary major helped me, because there was no women's studies departments when I was, or they were just fledgling, just emerging. And so it was a very interdisciplinary. I had to basically create an independent study major, an independent major with all different, obviously disciplines and areas of focus. And it was so helpful because it helped me to think critically, figure out how to research and how to create arguments and how to really learn from lots of different perspectives. And I think that truly helped me. And I think being a women's studies major in particular helps you to think about other and society and how society is structured and how much of that impacts how we live and work every day. Yeah.
Terrific. So I'm sure you're using a lot of those skills
I am.
now.
I am actually.
So if there's anything that's not more interdisciplinary, I can't think of what it is, because being a CEO, that's exactly what you're doing.
It
So
is.
walk me through law school a little bit. What were you
hmm
involved with, and what kind of skills do you think you honed during law school that shaped your current role?
So when I came into law school, I think this is why Northeastern was such a great place for me to go, because I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew that, I'll be very honest with you, my older sister had just finished law school, and she was like, yeah, you could do that. You could do law if you wanted to. And I was sort of trying to find a place to figure out what I could do. And I always thought I could use a law degree
Mm-hmm.
and I could learn how to write and create arguments. And I thought it would be fun. So I did that. No idea what I wanted to do. So the co-op program
Yep.
was really a huge plus for me. And it honestly, I came in thinking I might do public interest law,
Yep.
doing different things. And I shot out the other side of it, being going into corporate and intellectual property law. So that is the power of Northeastern, because it really, you would never know, right, what exactly you want to do. And then you get, I imagine waiting all the way through law school to then get my first job in law is crazy to me, because to me, the co-op system is so great, because you get in there right after your first year. I went straight in after my first year into my co-op, and it was so valuable. And everyone taught me something new about what I wanted to do and what I didn't want to do. So that was great. I also was involved with CISP,
Okay.
which was really important. I actually forget exactly what CISP means, but I know what it does, which is support co-ops that are not funded, or public
Right.
interest co-ops. And I actually had um, 3 of my co-ops were funded. So it was important to me, not through CISP, but to give into CISP and to support CISP, because I think that work is so important. So I did a lot of work there, and there were some
Fantastic.
great people involved there. Other one that, being involved in so many of the clubs that were involved, happening. There's just so much you could do in law school, and I really tried to focus my attention on how do we bring more voices to the table. Actually, I think law school was where I first started thinking about that concept, and Northeastern is really great about helping us think about that as students. I was also a TA for legal
Okay.
studies, so that helped me. I forget what it's called now, legal.
Yeah.
The one where we had to write briefs and then argue them, and it was really exciting and fun, and I loved that, because I learned how you really learn how to write when you have to teach it. So that
Sure.
was great for me to be able to do at law school.
Yeah, the blend at Northeastern of co-op and then school and then co-op and then school, I think
It's
really
awesome.
serves people well. You don't get bored of one or the other, and you really hone your skills. And you have continued to do some educational work over the years.
Yeah.
I know you went to the Anderson School of Management out at UCLA to learn how to work strategically and work with boards and
Yeah,
develop
yeah.
boards. And I know you've also, I think, are you done with the course at Harvard,
Not
or
yet,
are you still
because of
doing?
COVID, it's gotten delayed, but I will be finishing this summer. Fingers
So talk
crossed.
a little bit about those two for a minute.
Well, one, thank you, Mielle and Northeastern, for my opportunity to go to Anderson School of Management at UCLA to do that amazing course. It was a boot camp for women executives globally on how to be on boards and how to be strategic on boards. I remember when you called me about it, Mielle, and asked me if I would be interested, and I had to then, put myself forward, and you were like, "I'm not sure if you're going to get it," but I'm so glad it worked out, and I'm so grateful to Northeastern for nominating me for that course,
Yes.
which
So
was
let me just take 1 second and let everybody know that Northeastern was allowed one person in all of the alumni across the university to go to this amazing course. And I put forth Gina's name, hoping and praying they would select her, and they did, because of her wonderful leadership background and strengths. But it was kind of, I think, almost life-changing. But
It was.
talk a bit more about that. I just wanted to give a little bit of background.
I look back, and it was so timely in a way that I didn't realize until after it happened. because I had just moved from private practice into this role at the time as general counsel and chief administrative officer. I was, and there's an interesting story behind that. And then I was really, it was a whole new world for me. And I didn't know that a year later I'd become the CEO or acting CEO. So it really helped me to, one, actually understand boards from a perspective of that level of profession, of like how do you be on boards in this way that was so intensive and wonderful, from finance to governance to compensation to incentivizing management to being management on either side of the coin.
Right.
It was unbelievable, really well done. I met some amazing global women leaders from across the world. That was just amazing.
It was 6 weeks. How long was it?
It was probably a month, I think, now that I look back. And you lived on campus, and it was very intensive, pretty much 7 days a week. Most of us were, this was not what we would normally be doing for a month. So they really wanted to make it worth our time and very valuable. And it really was a catapult for me. So Mielle, when you say it was life-changing, I learned things there that I would need literally weeks from then, and I didn't realize that I would need it. Wow. So that was really amazing. And actually what it also did was make it clear to me I need to keep making sure that I'm learning and that I'm always out there getting as much as I can from other folks that are so smart and can give me so much guidance and insight. And so it really kicked off for me keeping that learning going. So unbelievably valuable.
I'm glad to hear it.
I use many of the things that they taught me in that boot camp today.
That teaches us occasionally to jump outside your comfort zone, say yes to things that cross your path. A lot of times we don't. Yeah. And sometimes it can just really change a whole trajectory. So it's good to say yes every once in a while. And
honestly, I will also say sometimes you have to do it even if you, my kids, were little, there was lots going on. But I also remember too, my boss wasn't really into it at the time. And I was like, I'm going to take the day, I'm going to take it as vacation. I'm going to pay my way. I'm going to do everything around it. I'm going to work in the fringes because he was. So you also just have to make the opportunities happen, even if, because I knew that you and Northeastern had, done a lot, did the work to get me there. And I had to do the work to say, all right, I'm going to make this happen. Right.
I'm so glad it did.
It was so valuable. Yeah.
So I wanted to think about, I thought about this a little bit over the last 2 or 3 days about what I think makes a great leader. And then I want to get your opinion on that. And so I want to tell you some of the strengths and characteristics that I think makes a great leader. So one is a superb listener, a collaborative partner with all kinds of entities. I think a little charisma helps, so I'm just going to be honest about that. I think, yes. And supporting others in their strengths and recognizing what others' strengths are. And then also being someone that can kind of pivot on a dime and run with things that are unexpected. So those are some of the characteristics that I think makes a really superb leader, but I want to hear what you think makes a great leader.
Those are all really awesome. And I will aspire to be all of them in my world someday.
I have no doubt that you are, Gina.
Oh, well, those are really great ones. I think I definitely agree that leadership has to do with listening and assessing and being like objective around what's happening in whatever you're trying to lead. And I think one of the things that the best leaders do is listen. And that's a really hard thing when you're in that role because you tend to want to solve it or direct it. And it really means stepping back and saying, okay, how do I listen to what's happening, understand what's happening, and allow others to also own the solution. And that's a really important piece because by golly, they're going to really execute if they own it versus me telling them what to do. Right. And honestly, they'll probably think of a much better thing than I would have. So really creating an environment where people are, that engagement is celebrated and encouraged is really important because the reality is they're the ones doing it. Your team is the key to your success. So I think creating that good alchemy of the team, which is culture, it's how you, the unsaid rules of the team, of how the team works together. Are they being collaborative? How do you create collaborative environments? How do you empower them and truly allow them to be empowered? Those are really important. And I think as leaders, then our role is that sort of what you were saying about charisma. It has to do with, do you have can you communicate vision and strategy? Are you able to really help push and stretch that team to the future? And the only way folks will be able to do that is if you communicate it in a way that they can really grasp onto it and then they own it and can move forward. That's scale, right?
Right.
They do it versus you having to keep telling them how to do it. And again, they'll figure it out and do it way better than you could have ever imagined. So I think there is an element there. And as leaders, to be able to articulate that vision simply and clearly is so important. And then I think just being humble about the constant learning of being a leader, because you're going to mess up all the time. Just reality is going to happen. And I feel like being a good leader also shows that you're aware of that you talk about it, but you want to learn and continue to improve, because that helps the team to be more like that as well, which I think feeds into the rest of how you get them moving towards that goal.
Sure. Right. This is a little bit of an interesting question, but you've seen now some female leaders and some male leaders over the course of your career. Yeah. Do you think women lead differently?
So someone asked me this question a couple weeks ago too, and I was kind of stuck on it because I think my gut tells me yes. But then I think about some of the leaders that I've really been inspired by, like the founders of Google, the different folks. And gender really doesn't, it's just who's willing to disrupt the norm. And I think sometimes women are better than that and sometimes men are. So I'm not sure that it really falls into a specific area, but I think what women can tend to be a little bit more aware of is more holistically looking at the various people and players that can be involved and actually be more empathetic to those and sit in the shoes of those folks, whether they be employees, customers, vendors, stakeholders of all sorts.
Sure.
But I think it falls in a couple different camps. I think women have the potential to be, the better leaders out there, but it's all on us to make it happen. Yep. Yeah.
So take me through what leading a board is really like. What are the obstacles? What are the challenges and opportunities that come with that?
So it's great. You rather lead a board than not. But I think one of the things that I think is really important is that I have the really great opportunity to lead the business and the board, which, it seems like they should all be combined, but in some companies it's not, and sometimes it is. In our company, it really makes sense to have it because we're very stakeholder focused, customer focused, and it allows the board and the company to be really much more aligned. I think one of the keys that I learned through the process is you really want the board culture and the company culture to be aligned. And that is something I work hard to achieve. And sure. It really does help a lot, right? Who you recruit on your board is the same as like what you think about when you recruit into the company. And my board is amazing. And one of the things about it is they are a strategic asset board, which is really an exciting thing to lead and is one of those things that's very dynamic. It's not the old school boards where people get on there and they basically age out or friends of friends get brought onto the board, right? It's not that. It's about how do we create a board that has all these strategic experience and insight to be able to truly help the company get to the future. And the board itself sees itself as more of a service leaders for the entire company. So I really love being able to be a part of that. I got the opportunity to conceive of this board, and then to be able to now get to the point of chairing it is really so fulfilling for me. And honestly, now the new chapter has begun because I have an amazing lead director that I work with, who's the lead of the independent directors, and it's a really great partnership. So I think boards are changing a lot now, and I feel like our little board is on the cutting edge of that, really thinking of itself as a strategic asset board, having a lot of diversity on the board from obviously, race, ethnicity, gender, backgrounds, operational versus, other pieces of the business, really trying to make sure that we're bringing all those voices to the table. And that's also what I've been working on been doing at our company. So to be able to lead something like that and to show folks that you can do it at any company, I don't care who you are, if we could do it at our company with just bootstrapping it, I think others can do the same.
That was one of my questions for you, actually. Obviously, we've had sort of another racial reckoning in America since last summer, so things have been in a bit of upheaval. We're in a current trial that's very tense, etc. What have you been able to do to include more diversity and to make some shifts at your company?
You have to make it just as important as any other piece of your strategy. It can't be this is our strategy for the future, and on the side, we're going to do diversity and inclusion stuff. You have to build it into the strategy as if it's just as important as your tech strategy, as your, people, retention strategy, or your, upskilling strategy, or whatever is your strategy. You've got to make bringing diverse perspectives to the table and all that means a number one priority. And I started from the first minute they gave me the keys to this company. I made that a number one priority. And part of it was, one, I believe wholeheartedly it gives you a better result. And the data shows you that as well. There's a lot of data that shows, if you bring more diversity into your, conference rooms and into these teams, you're going to get a better result. So I believe that. I also believe wholeheartedly that we're just not talking, we as a company, if you're not actually reflecting your stakeholders or customers, then you're not really able to step into their shoes. And we have a very large customer base, all parts of the U.S., actually 20 countries within North America and the Caribbean, expanding every day. So we need to make sure we're as diverse as our customers. And that's really important as well. But it has to be 100% intentional, because if it's not, the default is that you don't have diverse candidates. And so you have to make sure that you're making it a huge priority for the business, because that's the only way that it'll play out. It's because it's too easy for it to drift into the status quo, which is, the pipeline of folks who are all very smart and interesting, but they're in the front of the pipeline because they're not, because they are, in the more privileged group of folks that maybe have friends who went to college with, who can get them this job or this interview. We had to really break down a lot of that to make it much more, let's source from different places. Same thing for the board. It's just as hard at the board level.
Right.
Yeah.
So just have to be innovative.
Yeah, and set real metrics and make sure you're really doing it.
Make it a priority. So in addition to the racial reckoning that we have faced, we've also been under a pandemic for a little over a year. And you've been leading during that as well. Did you have to shift some of your leadership styles to match work from home and some other things that we faced in the past year?
Yeah, that's a really great question, because we're still in it, yes. And honestly, I think that crises either embolden you as a leader, or they can really show you your fault lines. And I think I had both things happen over the last year. I think overall, it's like you're firing on all cylinders. And as a leader, that really helps you learn. Like, if you think about it, like in life, you tend to learn the most when there's turbulence. You learn the most when things don't work out. That's your growth spurt. And I always say this to my kids, and it's, this is the learning period, right? And I try to show, like, when everything's great, you're just kind of scooting along. But then when the big things don't happen, that you think they're going to happen or you fail. And then all of a sudden you're like, wow, I learned so much. That was this year. And I think we did that as a company and as a society. I think we're still working through that. But I do feel that it allowed us to almost really key in on what was important for the business. The first thing we did was set of principles that were this is what we're going to do. These are the things we can control. And this is how we're going to move forward in this environment. Knowing that it's fluid, knowing that we're going to adapt as we go. And that was really important for our team and for our customers and stakeholders, because we weren't spinning. It was, okay, let's just focus on what we can control and keep moving forward and actually further distill and prioritize our strategy so that we're not wasting time doing things that we thought we wanted to do, but we shouldn't be doing now.
Right.
Our customers were shifting. We had to be listening, kind of, as you said, we had to make sure we were pivoting and adapting. And I think it actually made our strategy so much better. Good. Now, I will say we are in telecommunications, so we were not in hospitality or in an area where they were hit way worse, right? So there's also that feeling of like, okay, you've been spared, don't waste it. Don't waste it. So that was another piece of it, right? It's Churchill's thing, or it's attributed to Churchill, don't ever let a good crisis go to waste. Well, that was really what this was, I think, around really distilling and making sure our pivots would make sense. And communicating that in a clear, simple way. And that was really important. And you in part of your question, you said, how has that changed leadership? And that's such a great part of the question. And I think as leaders, we need to think about that a lot, which is we are now in an environment where, what you and I are doing right now is how we're going to communicate with the vast majority of our employees, probably forever at this point. And so it really means we have to raise our game in how we talk about things, how we communicate, how we make sure people know what they're doing, and just cutting through noise and confusion as much as possible. So it's really going to require leaders to really just be at that level at all times. Right. Because you're not going to have the ability to say, well, put them all in the same building and they'll all just create strategy and culture, right? That's just not, I don't think it ever really was the case, but I think it's now definitely not the case. So as we consider going back, what we're going back to is not the past. Right. It's a new environment where you're going to have much more distributed workforce. Some people are in an office hub. Some people are at wherever they are, right? How do you do that and still create the culture and the team and the connection and the clarity around what you need to do? So I actually am really I'm upping my game. I think most leaders are. And it's going to be like a learning process. And that's the other thing. There's no playbook for this. And that's exciting. I love that because it's a blank page, but it is definitely a completely new environment.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So I know you've been involved with Women in the Law for over 15 years, as mentioned in my introduction. And Women in the Law has had a number of programming options, such as teaching negotiating skills and things along those lines. We do a lot for people at all stages of their careers. But how can women help women in leadership roles? What have you seen?
Just one is always say yes to the coffee or call or whatever. I always do. And it doesn't even whether they're a woman or a man, but mostly women. I mean, I almost reach them out more so because the reality is sometimes when we don't see a lot of ourselves doing these things, right? We need to talk to the people that are, and the people who are in positions where we are in leadership positions, we need to be open to talking to other people, just to listen, provide advice, make connections when we can, because it really opens up so many doors. And I think I was a little nervous about doing that earlier in my career. And I was fretting about putting people out, but no one ever feels that way. People really do want to help. So I think it's on both sides of it that people aren't afraid to say, because we can reach anybody now, right? Through social media, reaching out to say, I would really just love 15 minutes of your time because I'm really interested in this. You got to do your work and make sure you're explaining it in a way that you actually figured out who they are. And then I will always say yes. And so as leaders, we have to then say, yeah, of course I'll give 15 minutes and be 100% present in that 15 minutes to give that person as much as you can. And then also to think about it when you consider pipelines with things you can't control, right? Pipelines within your own companies or within other organizations. Are you really making sure that you're giving opportunities to people at all levels of the company?
Right. I actually recommended your name to a grad who's stepping into a CEO role in May, just so you know. So you might have someone reaching out for a coffee or a chat. But yeah, I think don't be afraid to make those connections for people. I think that's really important where you see that it can be valuable.
And I'm sure I stole this from somebody, but I've been perpetuating it that I believe the JD is the new MBA. So yes, terrific. I think there's gonna be a lot more of us CEOs with our JDs. It's a great way. I mean, there's so many reasons why I think having a law degree is really great for being a CEO, personally. So we can get to that at some point if you want, but it's really interesting.
What accomplishments are you most proud of to date?
That's a really good question.
There are many.
Well, I think it's, well, I'm a human being, so I would say my family. I think, one of the things that has been so rewarding for me, and I've learned so much and grown so much, is being a mom and a wife. And that has been honestly where I've learned the most and taken the most spills, but I've learned along the way, and it's just awesome. So I think that's a great accomplishment, just to feel like you get through life with these people and you love each other and grow and encourage each other. So that's great. And I think it's connected is my business, because my business, I see that as, when I first was given the opportunity to run this company, I actually was given it during a time of huge transition, crisis, uncertainty. A lot of women get leadership roles in those environments. There's actually statistics around that. Oh. They're like, just right the ship and we'll go find the real CEO. That's what exactly, was in my situation. And I think, I was given a lot, thank God they took a risk on, took a chance on me. But one of the things that in the moment that happened, part of me was like, oh crap, right? I got to run this company. Yes. But another side of it was, okay, you can run this company. So why don't you create the company that you always wish someone had created for you?
Oh, I love that.
And that has been my guiding principle through this whole thing. So right out of the gate, talking about diversity and inclusion, right out of the gate, making sure we were creating a culture that empowered people, that was a we culture, all these different things. I had people literally tell me, stop, you need to focus more, your this business isn't solid. You have to wait until the business is solid to do that. I said, no, I know I can get this business turned around. That's not, and we're going to do that. And I'm not distracted by this culture stuff. Right. No, this is just as important, because if I'm in this beginning cycle of transforming a business, this has to be a part of the DNA from day one.
Oh, I love that.
I can't add it later.
Right.
And so I'm very, I feel accomplished that I stuck with my guns on that. I stuck with my guns on that piece. And I think this is where work and purpose come together, right? And you have your personal purpose. And I think as I was getting older, I was realizing, wait a minute, you can make money lots of ways. And that's a very privileged thing to say, but you can, right? You can make money. But the reality is, it's not about making money. It's about creating something that's bigger than yourself. It's about having purpose. It's about feeling like you're making an impact. I don't care if you're making widgets or you're, in healthcare and doing these amazing things. You have a purpose. There's an impact you make. And even if it's that your employees are engaged and can bring their whole selves to work, that is so valuable. And so that it feels like it doesn't feel an accomplishment. It feels like it's over. It's never over. It's like a continuing, rolling, but it's wonderful challenge and accomplishment to say you can make a business successful. But I feel really accomplished that it was done with a set of values and purpose that was really about how can I make a positive impact so that every employee of this company feels that they, again, can bring their whole selves and engage. They feel like they have a purpose. And then to have that flow out
I love that.
To the organizations that we
That's
serve and stuff.
Huge accomplishment, Gina. And I'm very mission-based too. And I have to feel that to feel engaged with my work. And it makes everything you do so much more worthy and just feels good. So if you were looking back in time and looking at your law school young woman's self, what advice would you have for that person, for young Gina, making her way at Northeastern Law School?
Right.
What would you say, maybe try this or do this differently or think about it this way?
So funny. I don't know if I would change very much. I think it's all really valuable to the journey. One, I loved law school. And I remember when I was a summer associate at Foley, Hoag, it was funny because it was the co-op that I became clear to me that people don't like law school. None of the Northeastern people, it was everybody else.
Yes.
It was such a drag. And I was like, oh, I feel like it's so interesting. It's like law school was like this amazing opening of a world to me. And the environment was so amazing. So one, I'm so glad because I loved law school. And most of my Northeastern friends feel the same way. And it's a very unique thing because most people do not say that about law school. So one, I would say keep enjoying it, keep digging in. Maybe try some different things. I think I did three corporate
type
co-ops. I probably would have shaken that up a little bit. I was also the U.S. Attorney's Office in the drug unit, which was really, really fun.
Wow.
Although I am not a prosecutor. But I learned a lot and loved it. Actually, one of my favorite things was criminal law and evidence, and it was always really fun. But anyway, I think probably even do more if it's possible. Get all those different experiences that are there for you. I mean, it's just unbelievable the amount of things you can do at Northeastern. It's like the opportunities at every turn are great. So I would probably say dig in a little bit more. I think, just because that would have been cool to do some different things.
Right.
Other than that, it's a great environment. So I wouldn't change a lot.
Right. Let's see. I wanted to ask you, do you think you can teach someone to be a leader, or is it innate?
Yes, I think you can teach someone to be a leader. I think there's gradations of the success of it. That some of it has to do with maybe strengths you already have.
And kind of on a corollary, do you have any role models?
That's funny. I don't have a lot of, I have a lot of people that inspired me.
Right.
And I was thinking about that. I think because one of my kids asked me that like a year ago. And I was like, well, I have lots of different people that have influenced me through the years, but I don't have like one or two role models. But I do believe that like my first one that I ever had was Geraldine Ferraro.
Oh, wow.
And it's so interesting because I didn't grow up in a very political house or anything, but I remember watching her at the national convention and being like, amazing.
She was on the news today because Walter Mondale passed away. Yes. So she was a real trailblazer. So that makes sense.
A huge trailblazer. Running for vice president, it's just in the 80s, right? So it was just so unbelievable. And I remember watching her and thinking I loved how she spoke. I loved everything about her. And I was just transfixed. So there is an element of being able to see somebody, right? That is doing all of these amazing things, right? And that you could see it, and it was a woman, and she was there doing it. So I think there's these this is why it's important to see yourself in leaders. I believe it wholeheartedly in changes we have to make in entertainment and all kinds of things to have people see more of themselves, because it really does make an impact. It really makes you see things differently. Absolutely. Yeah.
So 2 more questions, and then I will let you get back to being CEO today. But where do you see yourself in 5 years? I know that's kind of a common question, but I want to know where do you think your career might be headed? Do you have any ideas or not yet?
Yeah, well, I feel like there's so much to do at Somos. We have an amazing strategy, and I'm just like I can taste the next chapter of what we need to do and what we're achieving and today to build on that. So I really see a lot of what we're strategically building now having come to fruition. So I really see that the chapter, it's very exciting. I also see, I'd love to be able to connect more with other leaders. And so I'm trying to figure out what that means. Maybe down the road, doing more things at a more public way around leadership, I think would be really helpful because it's the insights, it's the conversations. Right. And it could be also more people see, younger people seeing women in CEO roles and chair roles that don't necessarily meet convention. I'm not your normal CEO or chair. And that was also something I had to learn down the road, right? I just have to be me, right?
Yes.
And that's kind of like one of those things where people will say, just be yourself. It's very hard to be yourself because you've been, sometimes through the years, you've been taught to kind of be like someone else, really, to play a certain role, right? What does a CEO look like? What does the chair of the board look like? Even what does a lawyer look like, right? And so you have to go through that process of saying, well, it's too hard to be somebody else. I've got to be just me, but that's going to have to be something that you also have to, it's not a fixed thing, right? You're always growing and learning and changing. So
I think a little bit of that comes with age and wisdom.
It does.
The authenticity feels the best, but it does take a while to get there, I think. And once you do, I feel like it really propels your work in a whole other way.
Yeah.
So we talk. Go ahead.
One thing I will also add, that I think is really valuable that I learned towards the middle of my legal career is we have to come to terms with risk. And this is something that I think as lawyers, we're actually the best able to assess risk, but to actually take it on. And I think that's really important too. And it also is something I think women need to hear more is risk is part and parcel of everything we do. And I think as lawyers, we're very objective. Like, here are the risks. We can assess things very quickly. We can assess mitigation. We can understand all these things. But the reality is to actually step into risk, whatever value, risk can be very different for each person, but you have to go there because reward only comes with risk. And so a lot of the leaps I took in my career were connected to taking something that was risky, right? I wasn't sure if this would work. I probably shouldn't even have been asked to do the job. I probably shouldn't have asked to do it, right? But you've got to dwell in that uncertainty and risk and discomfort because that's where you grow. And actually that's where you get the next step. That's where you get that, you move your own personal leadership, whatever that is, to the next stage. And I think I had to very quickly learn. I remember when I had the opportunity to leave, a big firm that I'd come in after law school, it'd been an amazing place. Still think some of the smartest people and best lawyers I've ever met were from Foley Hoag. And I was given an opportunity to try something different. And I was like, oh God, I can't do this.
Yeah.
And then within the one weekend said, how can I not? But it takes that mental shift to say, what really works for me? How do I do this? And then how am I just going to go straight in with eyes open, knowing it might totally fall apart or fail, but at least I tried it. And I think that's a big part because if you don't take the risk, you don't get the next reward. You kind of stay where you are.
Well, you've definitely made some leaps, and you've inspired me not only today, but over the course of the last 15 years, what I've seen you accomplish. I'm not surprised you were nominated for an Entrepreneur of the Year, and I'm sure that you lead authentically, Gina. I just know that about you. It sounds like you're really mission-based. Is there anything else you want our viewers and listeners to know today? Believe in yourself. Sounds so cheesy, but, sometimes if you think, what's the worst that could happen? It's really not that bad. And you can handle it and you can figure it out. And so I think it's really important for especially women in law to think about themselves as drivers of change, as
pioneers and disruptors and not worrying about, well, I don't know how this is going to go. Well, yeah, you don't, but that's okay. You can keep going and have confidence in yourself that you're going to figure it out. And that's where you also need to tap into others. Get help, get insight. Say, I don't know what I'm doing. What do you think? Right? Tap into people. And I think that's where you're going to be able to, make it work, because you'll tap into people to help you get there. And people are more than willing to do it. I very rarely, actually can't think of one time someone didn't say, yeah, I'll help you. Wonderful. So that's a big piece.
I agree. And that's kind of the power of women in the law and the actual programming too, because you do meet a lot of people that want to support and help you. But
every day.
I really, really value your time today. I appreciate your spending some time with me for the podcast. And I just wish you the best and the most continued success. And I have no doubt that's going to happen. So,
Thank you. Well, I'll always be a champion of women in the law. And I'm so excited for this year.
Well, thank you. And thanks for spending time today, Gina.
Thank you.
Talk to you soon.